He proposed that the money saved by the abolition of royalty could pay for the first ever welfare state. He advocated pensions for everyone aged 50 and over and the first national state education system. There would be an allowance to cover funeral expenses. Then you've had the Daily Mail going,
"We uncover the cheats with nothing wrong with them, deliberately dying to get their free coffin."
He proposed building a hall to accommodate central London's homeless, whereas the only way the government would propose that now would be if they could do it through sponsorship. The second part of The Rights of Man became the best-selling book of all time, literally a craze.
I mean, I remember at the time it was something of a sort of publishing phenomenon, because the population is about 10 million, half of them couldn't read, but it still sold.
Get up, stand up, stand up for your right.
It was an enormous success because he caught what people sensed, that they were treated as dirt.
The main reason I remember it coming out, the actual day, was on a Monday, because the Arsenal had to play Blackburn, and if we won that we went through to the quarter-finals of the Cup. Sales of programmes dropped by nearly 25% because everyone just brought The Rights of Man. So you got half-time, you had, instead of your pint and your pie, you just sat there and read chapter 4, The Rights of Man, and what we should all be doing.
Well, 100,000 copies, means almost everybody, and people would gather to read it. I think said that in every cottage there was a copy and people would go and discuss it.
Every cutler in Sheffield had a copy of The Rights of Man, which of course led to the Great Teaspoon Shortage of 1792.
The most important thing was the price. It was so cheap.
Everybody had a copy. People who couldn't read it had a copy. It's just, you just had to have it. It was just one of those things. It's like an iPod.
Well, I'll be honest with you, my mate Tommy Mercado had a load of them in it, a big old bag out the back, and used to sell them at knock-off price even again.
Paine's style was again described as vulgar. The gentleman author Isaac Hunt described it as
Coarse and rustic, seducing his illiterate and unskilled readers.
which is uncannily similar to now, when loads of newspapers and political magazines seem to think that anything vaguely readable is somehow vulgar. So they're full of articles by people like Janet Daly and Simon Jenkins that are actually impossible to read, which is quite an achievement when you think about it. I mean, even the dictionary is readable. You can go aardvark, aardwarf, abacus. But trying to read these people is like trying to do that trick where someone bets you can't eat 3 dry cream crackers in a row. And you think, oh no, I will get to the end, it can't be that hard. And halfway through you find yourself going, Liberal Democrat confirmed for public can't eat from Walker. And it was Paine's accessible style that terrified the government. The writer William Godwin had written a book putting the case against royalty, but it was inaccessible and expensive, and so it was never banned. Following the publication of The Rights of Man, a huge movement for reform erupted. Prime Minister Pitt issued a proclamation against seditious and wicked writings, to which the MPs cried, "Damn Paine!" He was charged with seditious libel, and fearing he was about to be executed, Paine fled to France. On his arrival in France, he was instantly invited to join the National Assembly, the parliament that was set up after the overthrow of King Louis XVI. Soon after Paine arrived, the National Assembly began to debate whether or not to execute the king. Now, Paine had always insisted that it wasn't individual royals that were the problem, it was the whole system of royalty that troubled him. He'd always imagined that once a monarch had been deposed, that they would be deported, so he voted against the execution. But his first problem in taking part in this debate must have been that, despite being a member of their parliament, he'd never learnt a word of French. So his contribution must have sounded like any British person talking to a bunch of foreigners. What we need to do with the king... Oh, they don't understand me. What we need to do with the king with the crown. Oh, God, they don't even know what a king is. The crown! Off the stamps, the one off the money. Oh, how thick can you get? The one off the coins, the king! Paine's other difficulty was that with European armies advancing on Paris and the king backing their invasion, the majority in the Assembly argued that the king had to be guillotined. They won the vote and the king was executed. But then the leaders of the Assembly jailed the most prominent opponents of the execution, including Paine.
Steady on a minute. Ow!
He was sent to this building, which had been a palace, but during the revolution was turned into a jail. And then he had another dreadful piece of luck. While he was here, the Great Terror was introduced, in which hundreds of people were guillotined. And so Tom Paine, who'd arrived in Paris as one of the most prominent supporters of the revolution, was told that the revolution had sentenced him to death.